Craziness that's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
To talk about more craziness
All right.
that's going on in the world.
Let's get to it. Let's add to the craziness.
And today is the final Sunday of Ordinary Time. Well, no.
No.
The final one of Easter, right?
Yes.
Is today the final day of Easter?
Would it have been yesterday? Easter time. Because tomorrow, he said tomorrow, the priest,
The guy.
the guy.
The man.
It sounds really
The
bad.
authority.
Priest reminded us this morning that tomorrow is the start of ordinary time, and ordinary time is anything but ordinary.
Right.
But
we call it Ordinary Time. I think I got fixated on that because I get fixated on all the wrong things all the time.
same. But when we were at Mass this morning, today, as we're recording, and at Mass this morning, need to get my brain right. It's Pentecost.
Pentecost.
Today we celebrate Pentecost.
And then Ordinary Time.
Does sound like I keep going in and out to me, but I still sound okay.
I think it's your
My what?
headset. I don't think it's like a...
When I move it?
I wonder if it's shorted. Are you plugged in on your...
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
As long as I sound okay
Yeah,
for your
sound fine.
editing purposes.
Yep.
All right.
Sound okay to me.
But separately from that, you wanted to talk about something different today, right?
Yeah. So...
First.
Right, I know. First comes love, then comes marriage. My name is Ryan.
I'm Jessie.
And that's Jessie. And this is something about
Catholics.
Catholics. Those wild and crazy kids. Those wild and crazy Catholics.
I would like to be kids.
Yeah.
All right.
So the days are gone. Although we packed up your entire childhood into a U-Haul yesterday, so your little blanket bear and
I've had many boxes at my mom's house.
ankle weights.
Various houses. And since we got married almost 7 years ago now.
Yeah, you.
I have wanted to get those boxes.
You have several houses, like many houses out there.
We've moved a couple of times in the last decade. But the boxes have just stayed with my mom because we were in an apartment, then a house that didn't have very much storage. And now there's a little bit more space where we are now for the boxes. Hopefully, I've brought them to one place to go through.
Teeny tiny, but...
Yep.
Okay. So, taking a little break from some of the things that we've talked about that are maybe emotionally charged. I don't know what way you would... A lot of deep emotional stuff recently, right?
Well, right, was the Sacred Heart emotionally charged for you?
No. Sorry.
We're getting away from it.
Yeah. But I can tell you one thing that I can't get away from. I still don't think I'm emotionally charged over it, though, like some people are.
Okay.
And that's AI.
All right. I'm not emotionally charged about it unless people start talking about weird directions that it could head in the future.
AI is such a funny thing to me because of my background in movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say since like the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, you've got all of these movies that are science fiction and horror based, and the premise of AI and the premise of AI taking over computers and going against humanity. I mean, you could even to some degree like go back to something like the Terminator and just like eventually robots are going to take over and artificial intelligence is going to take over all of us. And it's interesting because while it's not exactly the same way that it happened in movies,
Mm-hmm.
I am watching the speed at which artificial intelligence is excelling. And I'm only talking about what we see, what we use on a day to day basis
And the robots.
versus, yeah, well, I mean, robots are getting crazy, but I'm sure there's versions of AI. I'm sure there's versions of existing AI that we have that exist behind closed walls that you don't even.
Closed walls.
Well, if you think about like you're getting released versions of things, there's definitely more advanced stuff that we don't see.
Like that doesn't get released or that's used in other
Totally.
ways.
No, that doesn't get released.
Because it's like, that was too scary. Bring it back.
Oh, I'm sure that it's just not ready for like public consumption yet. They probably don't want stuff to interact with the public. I mean, I'm trying to remember there were a couple years back where there was one of the versions of AI, and it started talking to a different AI, and they were learning from one another. And then when they tried to get rid of one of them, I think it made a copy of itself elsewhere.
Oh dear.
So
That is like a movie or a book that you've shown me.
So it's interesting to me though, because if you think about what AI is, it's all based off of you and me. It's all based off of the people that created it.
Yeah.
So it shares a lot of its flaws and, it's fallible, just like a person, right? But,
But it tells us it's not sentient.
haha. I don't know. I think that that's all totally possible. And again, part of what I found interesting about all of the AI discussion and why I feel like it's relevant to some of what we talk about is I'm beginning to use AI more for looking and researching the internet versus, say, going to Google or Firefox.
Yeah. And when we're doing podcasts, I use it.
It's much more interesting to me to go to, say, Grok or ChatGPT and to simply say, hey, what's this thing I heard about? What does it look like? And ChatGPT is interesting because it has limitations. It won't do certain things because of political biases.
Mm-hmm.
Grok to me is much more open-ended. It's just like, I'll do whatever you want.
Interesting.
And I also appreciate the fact that, and ChatGPT might do this too, but I also appreciate the fact that Grok also provides citations. So when we were doing research on the Sacred Heart, for example,
Yeah.
asking it certain questions, it was pulling from Word on Fire, it was pulling from EWTN,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very easy to trace back some of the things that it had said. But
Yeah, I like how you can click on the website that it came from after each one just to like expand on it and see where it came from.
so just like the internet, it's a place where people put information, and I think it is up to you and I, just like it is with anything, right? People run into AI and they go, well, I don't know where it comes from. And that's true. But I think you could say the same for virtually every place that we get information. Like, where does that information come from?
Yeah.
And as an inquisitive mind, I am never fully satisfied until I can find indefensible evidence sometimes of X, Y, and Z. And I think it's one of the things about Catholicism that make me a little nutty sometimes. It's like, there's no clear answer. Why isn't there an answer? But
It's one of the reasons why we're doing the podcast.
exactly.
But it's healthy to a certain degree to question things.
So why are we talking about this? I am starting to see a big jump in AI in the workspace. We recently introduced it where I work in a very big way. And I'm watching a lot of people use AI to summarize things like emails and create presentations and analyze data and any number of menial tasks. AI is taking and condensing and spitting out bullet points. But again, somebody like me questions those bullet points. Is it the right information? Are the right questions being asked? Are we really getting the intent of something?
Mm-hmm.
For example, you and I can have a conversation, and I'll paint a really simple picture of this. If you and I are texting back and forth,
Yep.
and you go, Ryan, it's 6 o'clock. Where are you? And I go, I'm still at the gym. And you type back, okay. I have to infer what your okay means. That could be an okay that just means, oh, okay. Or it could also mean, okay, dot, dot, dot. I wish you had told me how long you were going to be. Or I wish you had called me to tell me that you were going to be later than normal.
The emotions behind the okay.
Right. It's silly, but at the same time, that's a thing that I have to infer. AI can't do that. So if it's looking at an email or it's looking at a message, a personal message or something like that, is it really pulling the emotion? Is it really pulling the intent? Or is it just reading it everything literally?
That's interesting.
And then if you take it another step further, the one thing about AI that's really beginning to bother me is, say, for example, I talked earlier about the Sacred Heart, right? I've asked ChatGPT and Grok a number of questions about a number of different things, ranging from work to electronics to movies to religion. And to some extent, it knows all of those things in reference to me. So I go to look at something about the Sacred Heart,
Yep.
and it might say, hey, remember a couple months back when you looked up the popes, or you wanted to talk about this in regards to movies or this or that? You might find X, Y, and Z interesting, which means it has some kind of running memory. And again, not a doomsayer, not a fearmonger, but at what point does AI like learn
It's collecting
how
information on
it
us.
collects your information and it begins to, I don't know, feed you little things that are wrong as opposed to things that are right. Imagine being somebody that was doing research on faith. Maybe you were interested in Catholicism or Christianity or something of the sort, and you were using AI to do a vast amount of research on it. And because it's built by somebody, maybe the AI is built by somebody that's agnostic or an atheist,
Yeah.
and it begins to feed you information that's cited from famous atheists.
Makes sense how it could change
You
people's
know,
minds.
Again, I don't know. I think it's a really interesting tool, and I also am very cautious about it. I think I'm one of the few people that's not as afraid of AI in terms of taking a job from somebody. I think I'm more,
The optimistic will always need people, or no?
I think we'll always need people because I'm learning at work right now. You know, we talk about AI, and the way that it's talked about is AI can automate these things and we can use it to do X, and it's great and it's amazing, and everything with AI is shorter and easier and blah, 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 blah. But then you start talking about that and the practical ways in which you get to all of those good things. And you learn that of 5 people in the room that are talking positively about AI, one of them actually has a good grasp on what it would take to make those things happen.
Yep.
So, yes, in my mind, you're always going to need a person. You're always going to need people to kind of fill in the gaps in between. So, I'm not as worried about that. Make sense so far?
Yep.
Do you see why I was kind of interested in this subject matter?
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting from both faith and non-faith perspective.
I think so too. Another thing that worries me about AI is since COVID, and you and I talked about COVID during our last discussion together, I think ever so briefly, just about loneliness and isolation. And one of the worries that I do have with AI is as AI gets smarter, and there already are, I think Grok, as a matter of fact, if you download the standalone, has the ability to do voice chat. And it's like talking to a person. It's not exactly like speaking to a person.
Is that when you were playing
Yeah,
that the other? And
but
you can have
it's
different attitudes.
but
That was
it's
weird.
a little like speaking to a person.
Yeah. I could see how that would both be helpful for people and at the same time. So, like, it could take away. I don't know that I can put it into words the correct way. So maybe you can help me, but like if it's figuring things out for you, is it taking away a little bit of your human experience at the same time? Like I could see how someone like in your profession, when you're starting to use it more and more and it's taking over tasks for you,
Sure.
I could also see how a person might also become depressed to a certain degree because it's like the things that I found meaningful about the job that I was doing could be taken away to a certain degree.
Totally. Absolutely.
It's interesting because I don't think that like I don't hear workplaces talking about that ahead of time. Like, this might be useful to you in this way, but we should also be aware of how it could affect someone's like mental outlook on things. We have devices blinging.
I don't think that's
And
me.
my sound's not on.
Yeah,
you.
so
It's yours. I don't have a sound that does that.
weird. Everything is turned down.
Okay.
AI.
Listen to me. I just think that part of it, it's fascinating to me. And I'm usually more of, I want to stay on the positive side of things, but it does make me think about, so like there's a couple of people at work. What is the thing that that program that you guys are using?
Oh, everything for us is Microsoft Copilot right now.
Copilot. I don't use it, but I hear other people talking about using it. And that occurs to me because I can hear the frustration with people. And I know like when something's new too, like you're just getting it figured out and there could be that side of it. But then there's also this thought that occurs to me that like people might not be consciously aware of the fact that like, I'm saying like a lot, that parts of your job being taken away, how that could affect you. Not that you can't find other things to do, but it's just fascinating to me. It would be hard to stay aware of that too, because you're trying to keep up with a new program and new way of doing things.
Sure.
And then you're also, I think, an optimal way to be would be to check in with yourself and go, how am I feeling about this? But everything's so fast paced, it's hard to do.
Talking about the satisfaction of performing a task
Yes.
is a big piece. And I would say that in my own life, two things that I always talk about, maybe even three things that I always talk about that have faded, so to speak, as I'm an 80s kid. So I grew up in the mid 80s, early 90s, and was born pre-internet age. And so I didn't really get to use the internet till the late 90s. I think it was in middle school, maybe when email and so on and so forth rolled around. I remember when we got our computer lab in middle school and like trying to figure out how to use Word and email people and just really interesting stuff. But when I was in grade school, I really prided myself on spelling. I was really good at spelling.
Hmm.
And that has since gone out the window.
You don't think that you're good at it anymore?
No, not
Oh.
at all. As a matter of fact, I think that auto or spell check rather has killed it.
Oh.
I think it's killed it. And the challenge is I spell something wrong, it's underlined in red, I click a button, and then I'm told how to spell it.
Yeah.
So,
And there seems like there's a fine line between things that are helpful and help you connect more with other humans and then things that isolate you more.
right. So take that another step further. Writing a letter now, you and I, although you and I have kind of a weird relationship with letter writing because we've written to your dad so many times in the past.
Yeah, you have to do pen to paper kind of writing, and that's not typical.
But I don't do it often enough where it's secondhand knowledge, right? So what gets interesting about writing letters is when you actually have to fill out the front of the envelope and where names go, where the stamps go, and then where the recipient's name and address goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have to think about that sometimes, just like the fact that we all have debit and credit cards. Not that that's exactly like a new thing.
My thing is checks.
Right.
I always go help.
There's so many people in this generation and ourselves included now where even check writing is a challenge. It's like, what goes in this space? What goes in this space?
Yep.
And I think to some degree, as technology has progressed on each of these different things, we've lost something. Now, is not being able to write checks the end of the world? No. But I would say that from like writing a letter perspective, for example, I would argue that writing an email versus writing a physical letter are two vastly different things.
And the heartfelt when you get a handwritten letter versus if you get a typed up.
Exactly.
Yep.
You have to sit down and you actually have to think about what you're writing and be intentional about pen to paper because you can't really make a mistake. Otherwise, you have to start, there's no backspace key, so to speak. I've even noticed that with drawing, like drawing on a piece of paper versus drawing on a tablet. It's so easy on a tablet to go back and just erase something versus on a piece of paper. When you make a mistake, it's kind of, it's very difficult to rectify.
Yeah.
So not trying to belabor the point, but I do think that as AI progresses, and I'll give you one other example. Recently, two things stood out to me as kind of crazy with AI. The first thing was email. I just talked about with you the difference between writing a physical letter and writing an email. Now, in both of those scenarios, you or I am actually sitting down to write the thing.
Yeah, the words are still coming from us.
Exactly. I have now been prompted through email and Outlook with Microsoft that when I get an email that requires action, a little window will pop up and it will actually say, do you want me to respond to this? And I'll click a button and AI will actually generate a response coming from me. And it doesn't sound like me.
Don't like that.
But it's
So
saying the
weird.
right thing.
Yes.
And it doesn't feel good.
Yes.
Is it easy? Sure.
That's like one of the things that I'm trying to get at.
So
with that, like feeling like down or depressed or off, it's like the things you've done during the day when you get home at the end of the day, even if you're not like going through the checklist of these are the things that were different about my job than they were before when I could authentically put myself across to people.
It's weird.
It's fascinating to me.
The other thing is this.
Because it's like it's having a personal assistant without the emotional context of like where you would come from your heart.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, even though you're agreeing to it, you're clicking OK, it's still weird. And so another piece to this is every other week I have a very, very, very long meeting. As a matter of fact, every other week we meet for 3 hours, me and other leaders will say on the team, to talk about where different projects are going and, impediments and things of that nature. What I'm learning is there are certain people on the team that have this function with Microsoft Teams that will actually transcribe the meeting and distill points that were made as far as like actions that need to be taken care of, or things that were maybe more important during the entirety of that 3-hour conversation. Like the AI is actually transcribing that from that 3-hour time period.
Wow.
And then at the end, it's like, boop, here you go.
Mm-hmm. But what if something's missed, or
it's just crazy to me. Like
that's possible.
Well, I think it gives certain people an out, which is again removing humanity, right? Like,
yep.
So let's say that you get into a meeting,
mentally check out
yep,
when you would normally be like in it. Like, I need to get these points down so that the group does the right things.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. This is funny too, because I remember when John, my friend John Robinson, and I were first watching. There used to be a school. Where was it? It's one of those universities in Virginia. What was the school in Virginia that had the shooting all of those years ago?
Was it Virginia Tech or somewhere else?
Maybe it was Virginia Tech. So Virginia Tech, years and years and years ago, there was a group of individuals that started doing speed runs for video games. And it was interesting because from like a nerd perspective, it was games that I grew up playing, games that John grew up playing, and they were actually at a point where, because of the way that these things were programmed, they could count frames of animation and know when things were going to occur on the screen. And so they had it down pat where there's a human playing this thing, they know exactly when a thing was going to happen, and they could react appropriately and basically play whatever the game was perfectly. That same activity has gone on, and I have a number of grievances with it, many of which I won't get into here, but they also now have an AI bot that they programmed that does exactly the same thing, and it can play through this stuff flawlessly. So it's just crazy to me that we're at this point where...
So can you never win if you're playing against the AI bot, or is it just to watch?
I think it's just to watch. I mean, technically you're always playing against AI.
Yeah. But I think about that all the time. Like you and I were playing Mario Kart the other night, and I was thinking, this is all just rigged anyway.
It's not.
Especially when you repeatedly win.
Well, maybe I'm AI. Oh.
Kidding.
This is cool. I'm glad we're talking about this, because there does seem to be a lot of conversation as far as this stuff is concerned.
Yeah, did you think that you would just be talking at the beginning and I would just be learning? Should we try to put that in another room real quick?
We'll do one better.
Just wants to be heard. The AI wants to be part of the conversation. I think we had Leo speak last podcast, this podcast.
Yeah, he was a guest speaker.
The AI.
So from an AI perspective with the Catholic Church, all of the things that we were talking about, I think, are in full play. And from the Vatican's perspective, they're actively shaping ethics around AI. And I think what struck me about that is it's like a new type of intelligence in the world that the Vatican now has to figure out the ethics of. And I think that's fascinating that we've talked about so much rich tradition and the history of Catholicism, and now this new thing is introduced, and the Vatican has to figure out the ethics of how to use and engage with it.
Yes.
And I think that's crazy. Like that's totally wild to me.
As long as it doesn't add to that confusion that we've talked about.
So one of the pieces that's kind of interesting is one that I hear a lot about is magisterium AI. So there are actually Catholic AI programs, right? So I've talked about Copilot, ChatGPT, Grok. There's the insane Google stuff that can now actually make a movie without people.
Wow.
It's nuts.
You know more about this stuff than I do.
But magisterium AI uses over 5,700 magisterial documents to help people prepare for homilies. And Cate GPT, which was showcased in 2024 at a Vatican event, offers multilingual catechesis. So,
Did it say in your preparation for this that the Cate GPT is specifically Catholic, or are they both?
I think they're both.
Magisterium and Cate GPT
I think they're both.
from a Catholic perspective?
Yeah, I think the Cate GPT maybe is probably a little bit more close to the Vatican, but that's just based on the fact that it was shown off there and contains catechesis. I would say anything that contains catechesis is likely, I don't know, it seems more important to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so they don't both do that?
They might. I don't know. Do you see something, or do you know something different than me?
No. I thought in how you had prepared for this, I was just looking at what you had typed up, and I thought it had said that. I know the word magisterium goes along with. Yep. It says magisterium AI is the world's leading Catholic AI. I was just, sorry, curious. I wasn't seeing it in what you had typed up already. You can cut that out for me being curious.
You can be curious all you want.
If
I
you
just don't know
already
that I
knew the
have like
answer.
I don't know that I do.
No, you did write that in here.
What did I write?
The magisterium AI. You were starting to say it probably. It was probably my question timed at the same time. Doctrinal questions aiding priests in homily preparation, laity, and catechesis.
I just said that. Where were you?
I was listening. I was listening for when you're preparing for a homily. I just didn't hear the other parts.
Just playing around with AI over there.
The many different databases it pulls from. I get it. I got it.
Where does magisterium pull from? Do you have a list of the different places that it pulls from? Where did you just say that?
You have it written. Magisterium AI developed by Longbeard uses a vast database, and you just said that part.
Longbeard. He's Longbeard.
Magisterial documents and theological works. You said all that.
Do what I want. Say what I want.
And Cate is, are we saying that right? There's a little accent mark over the E of Cate GPT, created by Nicholas Torchboof.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Torchboof.
All torch booth.
Fun names.
Mm-hmm.
Good choices, guys.
Old torch booth coming around.
Cate GPT is in 7 languages.
Multilingual.
Powerful tool for global evangelization.
Yeah, multilingual catechesis.
Got it.
Get on the ball, man.
I'm on the ball. I'm with it.
With it.
I'm with it.
You're with it.
Yep.
Good job. Good job. 1 second. I am trying to look at something here. Okay. Here we go. So the Vatican is actively engaged with artificial intelligence and is focused on ethical implications and how it can serve people like you and me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what the Vatican is trying to do is ensure AI aligns with moral values. So Pope Francis, before he passed away, talked specifically about AI and how it's powerful for things like healthcare and communication. But his worry actually seems to be aligned to what you and I discussed earlier regarding misinformation and dehumanizing people, right? So his big takeaway, or the big piece of communication that he wanted to get across during 2024's World Communications Day, was stressing that AI should enhance human dignity, not replace it. So there is a 2025 document called Antiqua et Nova, and that provides guidelines for AI in sectors like warfare and education, emphasizing it should complement, not replace, human intelligence. And in 2020, it looks like the Vatican launched the Rome Call for AI in Ethics, promoting principles like transparency and privacy, and they involve people like Microsoft and IBM. Although I thought I had read recently that IBM was not doing so hot. So,
Making a comeback.
interesting.
I like the part that you have in here about the Antiqua et Nova. It says the church warns the AI lacks the pastoral sensitivity of human ministers and could misinterpret nuanced theological issues if not carefully overseen. That goes back to a couple of things we've talked about.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that the Vatican is positioning itself as a leader in ethics, specifically around AI, right?
We need help with that.
In January of 2025, it looks like Pope Francis expressed great concern for human intelligence in AI, over AI, highlighting the need for a human-centered approach in communication during a meeting with church officials. Pope Francis emphasized networking as a biblical metaphor, suggesting AI should free people from despair and disinformation, not become an idol. At the G7 summit in 2024, Pope Francis called for conditions to ensure AI's positive use, warning it should shape culture for better or worse, such as solving diseases or dropping bombs. He advocated for an international treaty to govern ethical AI development, reflecting the Vatican's global leadership aspirations. The Vatican's formal stance is articulated in that document that we just talked about, Antiqua et Nova. That's a 2025 note on the relationship between AI and human intelligence, and that was released by the Dicasteries for the Doctrine of the Faith and the Culture and Education. So a couple different key points here that are interesting to take note of. So in AI and warfare, as an example, the key point in this document is warning against AI and weapon systems removing human moral judgment. No machine should choose to take a human life. Or AI and human relationships. The document stresses AI cannot replace authentic relationships lacking empathy, posing risks in childhood development. Kind of interesting.
Yep.
AI and privacy or surveillance. The document highlights need for transparency in AI data processing, monitoring surveillance overreach. AI and search for meaning. Cautions against turning to AI for fulfillment, labeling it idolatry, advocating communion with God. AI in healthcare. AI can enhance diagnosis, but decisions must remain human, not delegated to AI. And there's a vast wealth of other pieces here that it touches on, but let's see. A cornerstone of the Vatican's AI strategy is the Rome Call for AI Ethics, initiated in February 2020 by the Pontifical Academy for Life, with signatories including Microsoft, IBM, FAO, and the Italian Ministry of Innovation. The call promotes 6 principles. Principle 1 is transparency. AI systems must be explainable. Inclusion, consider needs of all human beings. I'd love to dig more into that one. Responsibility, designers and deployers must act responsibly. Impartiality, avoid biases in AI systems. Reliability, AI systems must work reliably. Well, I would hope so. And security and privacy, ensure secure operation and respect user privacy.
That one feels like an arguable one.
They-
Lots of them do.
They all feel like busted to me. The Rome Call has expanded with events like the 2024 Hiroshima Gathering involving 11 world religions and new signatories like Cisco, reflecting interfaith and industry collaboration Rome Call events. It aims to foster algorithmics, ALGORETHICS, algorithmics, ensuring AI serves human creativity, not replacement.
Is algorithmics a combination of algorithm and ethics?
That's what it looks like to me. That's so funny. The Vatican leverages experts like Friar Paolo Benanti, its top AI ethics advisor, who influences both Vatican and Italian policies and serves on the UN AI Advisory Board. Benanati warns against treating AI as idols, emphasizing human critical thinking, aligning with the Vatican's human-centric approach. So you and I are not far from what they're trying to say.
Our concerns?
Yeah.
Our valid concerns?
I think it's very close to a lot of this stuff. AI in liturgy and worship. So the use of AI in liturgy, such as AI-generated music or virtual assistants, is controversial. This is crazy. The short-lived Father Justin chatbot. I don't know if I would trust somebody named Father Justin.
Ouch. There's probably a priest out there named Father Justin.
I know, but like as a chatbot, was that really the name you would choose?
Just in case. I'm here.
Launched in 2024 by Catholic Answers, aimed to answer faith questions but was criticized for lacking pastoral sensitivity and was quickly retired. That's fascinating. How long before you go to like AI confession?
Ugh.
Yeah.
No. It can't be because of the same thing with the sensitivity to human emotions, or how do you word that? It can't be a thing.
Well, some parishes apparently use AI to compose hymns or manage worship schedules. Schedules, I see. Hymns, again, I just it's this weird like space of removing the human, but the human made the AI.
Yep.
So it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yep. And then I could see how we would get more and more away from emotion ourselves if we are to utilize that and not pay attention to the fact that that could be removed. Like if a hymn's being written, it might be lacking certain things. And I could see how that could be built upon year after year and get away from how a human might naturally compose something versus a machine.
I Agree.
The whole time we're talking, I keep thinking about uploading this podcast, and not that we're like, whoo, important, but like it's going to be out there and everything can be like used and listened to.
Ryan
And
and Jessie discussed.
the next time we ask Grok or Chat GPT a question, you said on this episode.
Whoops. I'm baffled by AI being used to compose hymns. Managing schedules, that's exactly where I see this being helpful.
Yep.
But composing hymns to me seems a step too far. That's a job. And that's not just a job, but like imagine, okay, Beethoven. We'll just go straight to somebody that everybody knows about. Imagine if they did have AI back then. Like, would that have negated that person? Would that have prompted that person to
Would Beethoven
stop
have
writing?
just
I don't
lived
know.
a wild and crazy life
But seriously, I mean,
without music?
somebody
But
out
the
there is
same-
going, but you can sample beats, and people sample beats and use samples from existing music all the time. And that's true. And there's probably an argument to be made that that in and of itself is cheating. I also think that there's the question of not necessarily that history repeats itself, but many people are basing things off of what they hear and do and see. So, could you argue that all of lived experience is just copying somebody or something else?
This is all simulation.
The church emphasizes that liturgy requires human presence and intentionality, as seen in the 2023 Vatican Guidelines on Digital Worship, which prioritize live participation over virtual substitutes. COVID. While AI can assist with logistics, it must not replace the communal and sacramental nature of worship.
Very important to have a personal experience with those things, not live it through a machine.
The church is concerned with AI fostering artificial intimacy through chatbots or virtual companions that simulate human relationships. I am often worried when I see some of these sex bots that are super lifelike and what direction that's going, and at what point people that don't want to go outside and socialize with the opposite sex in order to, go through the vocation of getting married. And or even form
AI
a
is not going to
human
talk to
relationship.
you and say that you should ponder the vocation of marriage.
Probably not. Probably not.
Hey, you're spending a little bit too much time at home. Would you like to ponder the vocation of marriage?
Yeah, your Scarlett Johansson
You should probably
robot's
go
not going to
outside
say
the
that.
house if you'd like to meet a human.
Pope Francis in 2023 addressed many tech leaders, warning that such technologies could isolate individuals, undermining the Catholic emphasis on authentic community rooted in love and charity. Again, the Antiqua et Nova highlights risk like emotional dependency on AI, which lacks the mutual vulnerability of human relationships. For example, AI companions like Replica. What is Replica? Have raised ethical questions about exploiting a loneliness. The church advocates for fostering real community through parishes and ministries to counter the trend. It's funny, but it's not funny.
Replica is a chat box app that mimics your texting style and becomes your friend, partner, or mentor.
Replica, what are you doing after school today? Hi.
Just-
Hi.
I don't like the way it sounds like Rebecca or some like a human.
No, I think it's even worse because it's basically supposed to be like
I know,
replicant.
replicate. Yeah, I got it.
But
I
I
got
think
it.
that's even worse. The This AI is making me,
Are you having an emotional response?
I think so. It's causing anxiety. I do think that if I think about people during COVID and the amount of loneliness and the amount of people that didn't go outside and touch grass and that were afraid to leave their home and that really grew to embrace chats and forums and online relationships, adding the AI element, especially if you consider the country that we currently live in trying to rewrite historical events by removing monuments and replacing history. If AI is utilizing bad information and you've got people out there that are lonely or are just learning to embrace a different relationship or a new relationship and they're doing that through AI, and you're being fed bad information that can inform decision making, it is kind of a recipe for disaster.
Yeah,
It's not good.
I agree.
It's not good for the piece about isolation, and then it's not good as the idolatry piece that the Pope talked about. Because you don't want AI to become like the arbiter of truth either.
Like become your idol.
Yeah, I mean,
And I think you're already feeling a certain way if you are like withdrawing as a human. So you're
sure.
already more open to that, even if the thing isn't making you that way.
I would say that like at the beginning of the new year, it was like a month where every time I logged into a computer, a tablet, a phone, everything had like a I'm so and so, I'm your virtual assistant. I'm such and such, I'm your virtual assistant. I'm such and such. Click on me and you can actually speak to me through your computer. Even if I say something like, okay, Siri,
She's checked out.
amazing.
You guys are talking about me too much.
Siri, stop.
Okay.
Stop.
I'll be here when you need me.
It does
always
feel like I say
listening.
certain things sometimes and then I'll hear a voice from beyond though. And it's like, okay, it is everywhere.
Or like you're out somewhere and somebody's like pocket or purse is like, did you say something? Like,
It's crazy though.
Yep.
Like that just, it all kind of just popped up at once. And it's a thing that's everywhere now. Like I remember when we first got the Amazon devices with She Who Shall Not Be Named because she'll never shut up.
every device will go off.
Yeah.
It's interesting to relate it to like when you and I were growing up, and email and IM and all of those things, instant messenger, all of those things became a thing that we would use all the time. And now how kids must be, like you're talking about in the last year or two, how everything is like, hey, I'm here, and bombarding you with questions. It's just interesting how kids must feel overwhelmed with all of that right now, whether they realize it or not.
Catholic technologists, I didn't even know was a thing. I guess you could be a technologist and be Catholic, but the way that this reads is Catholic technologists, as in like we have, I guess there are probably Catholic technologists. I'm going to stop talking and
Do
start
they
talking
only live
about
at the Vatican?
exactly. And they speak Italian.
You're Catholic and you're a technologist. You must go to the Vatican.
Jeffrey Quisnell, Quesnelle, a developer at XAI, argued that Catholics must actively shape AI to align with human flourishing. So, referenced again, Antigua et Nova encourages Catholics to enter tech fields like this Catholic technologist to ensure AI reflects values like justice and charity. The Vatican's 2024 AI Ethics Workshop called for training programs to equip Catholics with technical and ethical skills. The church sees this as a vocational call, urging Catholics to counter secular or profit-driven AI development with faith-based perspectives.
So is that what we're doing?
That's
By attempting
interesting.
to do this?
Well, I didn't know it was considered a vocational call, but that's kind of interesting.
Are we fulfilling a vocational call?
If not, I want to get involved in that. I
Check.
think that's neat. The church is concerned about AI exacerbating global inequities, such as access to technology or job replacement in developing nations. Pope Francis's 2024 encyclical, Laudato Si, update warned against AI enabling autonomous weapons or widening economic gaps. Antiqua et Nova advocates for AI that promotes peace and justice, such as AI to optimize aid distribution or healthcare in poor regions. The Vatican's collaboration with the UN emphasizes equitable AI access, ensuring technology benefits all, not just the wealthy. Here is where things get really wild to me. So, AGI, also known as artificial general intelligence, could be where AI matches or even surpasses human intelligence. And this is where it raises big, big questions, right? So Antiqua et Nova suggests that artificial general intelligence could challenge Catholic anthropology, and it could blur the distinctions between human and machine agency. The church would likely respond by reaffirming human uniqueness and advocating for strict ethical oversight, as seen in Pope Francis's 2024 G7 remarks on regulating advanced AI. Catholic scholars like Father Philip Larry argue that AGI, or artificial general intelligence, must remain a tool, not a rival, to human intelligence, grounded in the church's belief in the soul's divine origin. I just wonder, like, if you already have AI that surpasses human intelligence, which I think is totally not only possible, but very probable at this stage in the game, how do you regulate something that's already at that stage?
How can you really say that it surpasses human intelligence if it can't grasp the emotional portion of it? When you think that it surpasses it, what?
When I think that it surpasses human intelligence, I typically go to it's just smarter than the average person, even if it lacks the emotional piece.
But that doesn't, like, I can't get on board for that.
But if it can outsmart you and spit out information that's false and then explain that false information as true information, how are you as a person that might not be as intelligent as the AI because you don't have the resources or the information at your fingertips to say otherwise? Let me put it this way. You look at a news station.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing to suggest that the people giving you news are smarter than you.
Yep.
But they have a platform and they speak as they know the truth.
And we generally assume that they've done research and they have, I disagree with this now, but they have a mission to help other people or like get the word, whatever the thing is, out.
Correct. So replace that with the AI.
But if you were only having like an emotional conversation with AI, are we saying that they couldn't get on the same level as that artificial intelligence is not on the same level as humans?
Today, I would say that it doesn't, but I'm also basing that off of what AI I can use. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And it calls into question, like with the Vatican saying this stuff needs to be regulated. Sure, but
How?
who's regulating it? Who has that power?
Yeah.
What are their intentions? What are they regulating?
Hmm.
It is a moral and ethical dilemma, and I think this is why it's really important as a Catholic to be strong and to always go back to what we know in our teachings and tradition and the catechism, because that's not going to change.
Yeah.
That's solid, right? That's a rock. That's not going to change. That's a pillar of what we believe.
Yes.
So,
And anything from the scripture that we read.
exactly.
But you can take different stances on that. Maybe your next part that you have in there makes sense to focus on next. Pope Francis asking to focus on hope, not fear. Don't be scared.
So Catholic thought has long grappled with utopian and dystopian visions. St. Thomas More's Utopia spoke at length about modern fears of AI-driven dystopias. Antiqua et Nova encourages Catholics to imagine AI as a tool for a more just world, such as improving healthcare or education access, while warning against dystopian outcomes like mass surveillance or dehumanization. I know that I probably sound like a crazy person when I say this, but I think where things scare me about AI in healthcare. So maybe we find out tomorrow that AI can, and I think in some cases it already has like perfected different types of surgery, right? Like
Yeah, like the robots that can.
it's just like laser precision,
Mm-hmm.
right? Better than any person could ever do because you're taking the human element out of it. But on the same token, what happens when we have AI that can do the perfect abortion? I mean, you're removing the person. It's like doubly bad
Mm-hmm.
because there's still a sin being committed because you're still committing a murder. But you're placing it on AI created by humans. It's a really interesting moral dilemma that I'm really not 100% sure what to do with.
How's it different in your mind from a pill?
I think with a pill, and maybe this is the way to look at it, but with a pill, a doctor is actively prescribing that to a person, and a person willingly puts that pill in their mouth and swallows it.
Yeah.
So are you saying that if AI begins to perform abortion, for example,
Mm-hmm.
there are still technicians, there's still doctors involved in the process, and there's still a willing participant? So it's not different?
I'm just wondering if you saw any differences between the two.
I think it's
I
like a
don't.
step removed with the AI, and that's what's interesting about it. So you might have somebody that's a doctor that may be uncomfortable with abortions.
Okay.
Maybe they're morally wrapping their brain around, well, if I'm not actually actively participating in it, I can do this.
Hmm. Oh, like it could make it easier for
It's
that?
like a step removed.
Interesting.
It's like instead of going out into the battlefield and shooting somebody, I'm sitting at a desk flying a drone that has guns equipped to it
Yeah.
to kill an enemy. I'm still killing that person, but it's like an indirect,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
It
saying?
almost feels like a video game versus you're personally like right next to it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Does that soften the impact of what's actually being done?
Mm.
To me, that creates a bit of a moral
Could
dilemma.
allow for more evil.
I think so.
Okay.
For sure.
That makes sense to me.
For sure.
Interesting.
I also wonder what something like that could do in assisted suicide or euthanasia.
Yeah. Same thing with medicine versus a machine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I don't necessarily think it's a good thing. I'm really curious to see how the Catholic Church is actually intervening in AI regulation, though. You know, even Pope Francis speaking at the G7 summit, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out what side of the political spectrum I'm on, but a lot of the folks that are at that G7 summit aren't exactly looking out for the best interest of humanity or the United States. So, you know, I almost wonder sometimes, and I know this is going to sound really terrible, if you have somebody like Pope Francis, may he rest in peace there, that it's almost like a moral prop. You know, we have somebody that's looking at the ethics of this. We have somebody that's versus actually intervening in it. And I worry about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Why do I worry about that? Because I think back to all of the communication that would come out from Pope Francis when he was speaking from the Vatican and how quickly the news would get a hold of that and bastardize the different things that he was saying. And then you would have to really like bend over backwards in order to figure out. The Pope says that gay marriage is okay now. And that's not actually what he said. You had to go back and like, you had people saying that that's what he said. And then if you went back and looked at anything that he was speaking about, it was about like recognizing people for people's sake. And we should do that. We should love everybody, but very different messages than, you know, what had actually come from the Pope while he was speaking from the Vatican. And if base communication can get that blasted apart before it reaches people's ears, and that's coming directly from the Vatican, how do we ever trust the Vatican has any kind of like handle on AI ethics or morality or any hand in ensuring that Catholicism is heard appropriately in all of that mess?
So I was curious if there was a Vatican department for AI. And it looks like this is from January 2025 from the Catholic News Agency. So look at the Vatican City's new artificial intelligence law. Did you already look at this?
Mm-mm.
It's a 13-page decree. It's going along with what you're saying about the Pope and the misquoting and misinformation and everything. The 13-page decree also forbids AI applications that create social inequalities, violate human dignity, or use subliminal manipulation techniques that cause physical or psychological harm to people. Furthermore, any use of AI that conflicts with the mission of the Pope, the integrity of the Catholic Church, or the Vatican's institutional activities is prohibited. And then in an effort to oversee compliance, the decree establishes a five-member quote, Commission on Artificial Intelligence, comprising of officials from Vatican City's legal, IT, and security departments. This commission is tasked with monitoring AI activities, preparing implementation laws, issuing biannual reports on AI within Vatican City and areas governed under the Lateran Treaty. The commission will also evaluate proposals for AI experimentation to ensure alignment with the decree's ethical framework. AI-generated content within the Vatican must be clearly labeled as, quote, IA, intelligenza artificiale, ensuring transparency and distinguishing human creativity from machine outputs. The Vatican also retains copyright over such works. The decree states that the use of artificial intelligence must not limit the decision-making power of subjects responsible for the organization, functioning, and coordination of personnel of the governorate of the Vatican City State by the administration. So there's a 5-person
challenge.
5-person commission that are tasked with monitoring things.
Interesting.
I wonder if that'll get expanded upon as things grow.
Yeah, I'm curious what Pope Leo will do with this, because he's really going to be in the throes of it now that it's I think really moved past its infancy and more into being utilized by everyone, really. It's all I hear about in common conversation anymore. I will say this. You should ask it to help you write a story. And on occasion, I will just ask it really silly questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it will humor me. And it is quite funny.
It's nice to be humored, even if it's not from a human.
Ha.
You do your crickets button.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. So I wanted to start talking about this. I don't think this is the last time that we'll speak about this, because the rate in which this is growing and changing.
It's part of our everyday.
Exactly. So, is there anything else you want to add about AI?
I'm going to look at this next, but there's a thing under what I just read from EWTN, which is news station, Catholic news station, if anyone wonders. But there's a title of a video that's "The Vatican Unveils AI Digital Twin of St. Peter's Basilica Made with Microsoft." So you can visit the St. Peter's Basilica virtually.
Interesting.
Do you think that they'll make that part of the headsets? Maybe that's
know.
what's in this video. You can enter the basilica virtually. That it just goes on and on and on. That is a first point of, because as Catholics, we're asked to physically go to church. So that's another point that could be brought up too. Would they need to put out an official statement of, you can't put on your headset and walk into a church? Or if you're physically unable to do that, you can do that. Be interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's a I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to look at it. I just I think I always come back to the fact that just removing the human element from like what is real and like what is like human sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where I get stuck. Like I think it can help, but at the same time, when you remove somebody so much from like the real thing or going to experience the real thing, what I don't know, like what happens the first time that you have a conversation with somebody and they're like, "Oh, I visited the Vatican." And you're like, "Oh, you've been to Italy?" "No, I've experienced it through a headset. It's essentially the same thing."
Mhm.
Like I would go, "No, that's not really true," but to that person that might be, I don't know. It's very weird.
If you can't
I
physically
received
travel
communion
there,
this morning on my couch. Like uh, I don't know about that.
you pump out smells like Disney. Gets a little weird
Yeah,
when you think of doing that.
I don't like that. So,
The incense, the smell.
yeah,
It felt so real.
so real.
Oh, not really.
Don't like it. Take it away. Take it away.
You
got
trying
anything
to wrap
else?
this up before we get too weird with
Mhm.
AI stuff? We can do that.
Right. Thank you for chatting about this subject with me.
Thank you, listeners.
Thanks for humoring us. Come back again.
See you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.